Good morning. I hope there's enough room. I'm really happy to see the hall completely full. So I really want, first of all, to welcome everyone, especially our guests from London and New York, for this really important event. It's the second or third? Fourth. Tri-center or bi-center computational neuroscience meeting, and the first one in Jerusalem, I'm sure about that. And it's really the initiative for this workshop. This is dedicated really for bringing together and sparking collaborations between the three centers. First of all, due to Chaim, Larry, and Peter, I suppose. And of course, we couldn't do it without the support and enthusiastic support of Sarah Kadik and the Gatsby Foundation. It's really not only helping us doing it in terms of supporting with money, but really the living spirit, I think, behind the whole idea of bringing together theoreticians for studying the brain. And we cannot thank you enough to start with this. So as you know, I'm sure most of you know, theoretical neuroscience or theoretical and computational neuroscience really started maybe somewhere in the middle of the 20th century, where ideas that came from biology, like the Hebb rule or the concept of neural networks, really emerged on one hand from understanding the tissues, understanding the neuroscience and the neurobiology of nerve cells, and at the same time, people like Rosenblatt and like other mathematicians, theoreticians came with theoretical models like the perceptron, and eventually things like models of memory and models of learning. And I would say that in a very interesting piece of scientific history, they really came together somewhere early, maybe too early in the early 60s already, where the idea that maybe we can mimic a neuron with a model of a hyperplane that separates between concepts, and this combination of insights from pattern recognition on one hand and neurobiology on the other hand already created something new. I think it was really these good old 60s where many of these ideas were formed, and eventually it was bounced back because the community was not ready for it, and came back again in the 80s, I think, with essentially two what I call cornerstones of this field. One of them is really the emergence of concrete models of memory in the shape of the Hopfield model, which was really based on the ideas of Hebb's and early on, and essentially the idea that you can actually take a very, very simplified model of a network that captures some of the biological aspects of real memories, and that eventually led to analysis that I think was started here in this place by physicists of such models, on one hand. On the other hand, I think it's not less important that people from computer science and engineering actually started to think about the fundamental limitations of memory and learning. Ideas that came, let's say, from Valiant and earlier from Russia, people like Vapnik, who actually studies what are the very basic limits of what can be learned, what can be stored, what can be extracted from examples, that combine really ideas from statistics, computer science, theoretical computer science, engineering, and eventually physics. So I really see these two cornerstones as the two legs on which what we now call theoretical computer science really stand. And it's really intriguing that here in Jerusalem, among other places, people realize very early in the game that without some direct communication between the experimentalists and the theoreticians, we will never progress this further. And it started already in the early 80s, in the mid 80s, by people like Chaim and Moshe Abeles and Hanoch Gottfreund and Dani Amit and others who realized that only by communicating we can really have this synergy of theory and brain science, which eventually led in the early 90s to the foundation of what we now call the ICNC, the Interdisciplinary Center for Neurocomputation, which is where we are all sitting now. And maybe most important, we realize that we need to educate a new generation of students which really can communicate with both the theoretical aspects, both sides of them, the physics and the computer science, and the neuroscience, the physiology, and recently even communicating with molecular neuroscientists, with people who deal with genetics of the brain, and with cognitive neuroscience, of course, trying to understand behavior on a much larger scale. So I really believe that these three centers really represent maybe the best, well, at least here we can say that maybe the best in the world in terms of pioneering this type of synergy between experiments and theory. And I think that there's a great prospect for collaborations and interaction between the centers. So first of all, I would like to say that these meetings have a goal. They're meant to really strengthen the personal connections between scientists in the three centers and allow even more. We already have a lot of exchange of students and scientists between the centers, but that's what we really are here for, to meet each other and to intrigue and spark collaborations. So students in particular are most welcome to try to do that. And we have the generous support that allow us to travel and to visit each other. So that's something we really want to continue. Of course, I don't follow what I wrote, but I really believe that there's really something new is going on. I mean, this mixture of theory and experiments is something that is going to lead, on one hand, to this hopefully one of the best centers in neuroscience in the world, in the form of the Edmund and Lily Safra Center right here next to us. And at the same time, the same type of exchange that you have in London or have in New York between experimentalists and theorists, there's something very interesting going on here in terms of bringing things together. And so let's just get into this new era of collaboration. I really want to, before I finish, I want to thank Chaim and Larry and Peter again for starting this series of meetings, and I want to thank Amir and Jonathan for taking on themselves the organization of this specific workshop, and of course Ruti Suchi, who's not here, but for dealing with all the administrative tasks. We'll thank her again at the end, I suppose. And I want to mention the dedicated support and enthusiastic support, actually, of our rector, Professor Sara Strunza, not only to brain science. I really think she is the leading figure who really, hopefully, believes that this is the next frontier. And without her help, I don't think we could be so optimistic about the future. So I want to invite Sarah to say a few words for everyone. Thank you again.
Good morning, everyone. And I should actually say congratulations on opening what I thought. Oh, sorry. What do I do with this? Okay, so good morning and congratulations on opening what my paper said is going to be the second. Now I learned the fourth, the more the better, tri-center meeting, and welcome to guests from near and far. Now that I know that this is the fourth meeting, I'm going to say something at the risk of repeating something that you have already heard, because this seems to me to be the most obvious thing to say in this occasion. And this is the quotation from Ecclesiastes 4, 9 to 12. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. I mean, this is the Tricenter. And as with everything else, there is more in a verse than what the verse says. and what the rabbi's commentary, the Midrash, says about this. Two are better when they are busy studying, better than one when each one of them studies on his own. And a threefold cord, this is the teacher who sends them back for correction when they are mistaken. This starts with the ICNC and it continues with everything else that we do. So there's, first of all, the experience of students, which I've seen in the ICNC and which I hope will continue to ELSEC, and which I already hear is the pattern in other centers like that across the world, where students, graduate students and teachers are never alone. It's always two, and then threesome, and then foursome, and there's always a group that works together. But it goes beyond the experience of the teacher, and it goes beyond the experience of simple collaboration. As Tali rightly said, this is brain science, neuroscience, computational neuroscience. It's all the forefront of science. And in the forefront of science, we have a very busy, buzzing, and energetic competition. Everyone wants to get the first. There is the Nobel Prize that people want to achieve, that some do achieve, and then that others, that the students want to follow, and it's very competitive. And what we realize with it's a competition for the prizes, it's a competition for solving riddles, for understanding, for cracking secrets. And everyone competes together to be the first to understand. And what we realize today is that the competition is not what it used to be, and one cannot compete alone. We are looking to be in the top, and there is a new meaning to Daniel Webster's dictum that there is always room at the top. We need to make room at the top for groups, not just groups as in the labs, but collaborations and cooperations that get there together, because together they have a better chance of winning the real competition, not that of winning prizes, but that of understanding. I don't know what will happen in 100 years from now. I don't know if there will be a completely different field where which people will call the forefront of science. Right now, this is neuroscience. And as we all try to push through the same door, the best way to get through this door is to get together 2 and 3 and move together. And I thank you for doing that, and for doing that with such, as I see what I see here, big smiles on with such excitement. I wish I could join. I cannot join, but I just want to thank you for doing that and to congratulate you. So thank you very much.
So we are lucky to have two wonderful women as two Sarahs today, and I really want to welcome Dr. Sarah Caddick, who is really behind, as I said, everything we do here.
And blame me for everything.
Yeah.
Actually, I can probably shout. I mean, how easily can you hear back there? You're all nodding. You're either lying or you can hear. I'm only going to be up here for a couple of minutes, so I'll ignore that because I have a bad relationship with these electronic tools. I tend to do strange things to them. It is very exciting to see everybody here. As Atai said earlier, you know, it is the 4th meeting, although to be fair, it's the 2nd Tri-Center meeting, so we can debate the finer points of that. And I'd like to say thank you to Peter and Larry especially, because those were the two people, Larry first, then Peter, who I first approached when I was working at Columbia to suggest that the two centers got together. I was being very practical. Columbia had received a very nice gift from the Gatsby Foundation. I knew of the Gatsby unit in London. And given that I'd spent most of my life after being a scientist working for foundations, I know that it's always very nice on the foundation side of things when your grantees talk to each other. So that was my reason for behind trying to get everybody together. Larry and Peter took that on September 2006. And we had a great meeting in London. That was followed by a meeting in 2008, I think was the next one, in New York, and then 9 in London and 10 here. I have no reason to believe that this won't be any different from the last meeting, which was very successful, and the one before that. There's a lot more people in the room, though, so go Hebrew. You got a lot more people out here. We'll see what New York and London can do. The whole idea of this meeting was that it would be relaxed and open and easy, that it wouldn't be hard work. I appreciate the work that's gone into it, but the whole point of this getting everybody together was so that you would naturally come to the conclusion that there were people amongst the groups that you actually wanted to work with, and you would get to learn about each one of the centers. As has already been pointed out, we all have London at UCL, Columbia in New York, and Hebrew in Jerusalem. We have terrific computational neuroscience. We also have excellent experimental neuroscience. We're each building big new experimental neuroscience centers, institutes, whatever you want to call it. So we have that in common too. And I'd like to see us continue the collaboration across all of those. Obviously, it's not what I want, but I can keep yelling at the right people, or being a bull in a china shop, as I'm often accused of. But if there's any questions you have about Gatsby, I'm around. I'm probably easy to spot because there are not that many women in the audience. So more than in London, Peter, and New York, actually. I also have with me my colleague, Gary Wilson, who can put his hand up here, who's new to Gatsby. So any questions about what we do, why we do it, why we started the Gatsby unit, why we fund Hebrew, why we fund New York, you're welcome to come up and ask us. But I really hope you'll take the spirit of and the intent of sort of the first meeting through this meeting, which is to enjoy, learn, and reach out and see if there's anything exciting that stimulates you. And thank you all for being here. And I will